This is about, not going to go into any of the details as to what Cockroach is, but I'll give a little bit of information about what Kubernetes is and how to interact with it. This is about on a Windows laptop installing a mini Kubernetes, Minikube, running inside a VM, which will then host the Kubernetes cluster will then host the Cockroach cluster. This is so that it more closely reflects the way we'll be running Cockroach clusters in live, rather than hosting it directly on inside Windows or on a Linux VM directly. So I know some of you have had some challenges installing the prerequisites. Minikube, kubectl are just executables. Just stick them in a folder, put them inside your environmental variables, and installing Oracle VM. Hopefully those instructions are a bit clearer now. I've been improving them this morning as to what they're working. Once you've got that installed, hopefully you'll have, and please feel free to follow this along in your own command prompt. Open up your own preferred command editor, Bash, PowerShell, just DOS, whichever one you want to use, and we'll start going through it. Now, I like Visual Studio Code, and it's got a nice editor as well. So my default editor is PowerShell for the terminal, so I'll be using that. So once I've got everything installed, if we do a Minikube status, you can see here I haven't got anything running, but I've got the components installed. So if I do a Minikube start, if your Minikube is already running, that's fine. But if you need to start up Minikube, please start it up now. It'll take about 10 minutes to run and start the VM up. So it's spinning up talking to VirtualBox, starting up a virtual machine, and it's then going to install a ISO, or launch it with an ISO, which will be the Linux ISO, and then it will install the Kubernetes components and spin up Kubernetes on top of that VM and be able to talk to it. Okay, while that's running, I will just talk you through a couple of things. So when we use Kubernetes, we pass in a YAML file, which is a stupid acronym because it's yet another markup language. And I'll just talk you through some of the information that I've been able to understand to make some of this wrong. So YAML file is very similar to JSON in that it just defines things. So what it's doing is you've got services, and in this case we've got two services which is going to be created on Kubernetes. One is a CockroachDB public. On a Kubernetes cluster, this is the load balancer, which knows about all the nodes nodes inside CockroachDB and will load balance. So public, it'll be exposed publicly, as in to external clients. They connect to that service, which will then allocate the connections to the whichever node has the least number of nodes inside the cluster. So that's the kind of like the public facing, hence it's named as CockroachDB-public. It exposes two ports, 26257, which is the default SQL port, that's equivalent in SQL Server to 14.33, sorry. And also a health check admin debug endpoint, which is 8080, which is basically HTTP representation, hence the name HTTP, and the other one is gRPC. The other service, this is the actual Cockroach cluster itself, is CockroachDB, and this exposes one port, which is 8080 for allows it to, we can monitor things like Prometheus, which will allow us to talk across to Grafana as well, and 26257, which is the internal ports as well as the SQL ports. The main thing that is different from most Kubernetes clusters in this one is that it's a stateful set. A stateful set says when you're creating a new pod inside Kubernetes, give it a fixed disk and fixed network IP address, so that if it is restarted, it's got the same disk and same IP name and address, so that it can internally know how to talk to each other. That's how we want that to happen in the case of a database, because we don't want the disks to be blown away if the node ever goes down or needs to be restarted. So this information here is specific to being able to run Minikube, so that it tells the VirtualBox how to allocate the disks in such a way. Don't ask me to explain it, because I don't yet know. Feel free to dig into it yourself if you want to understand it further. In the stateful set, this set as well, it's got the specific information as to what to install on those pods. In this case, it's CockroachDB, and it's the Cockroach version, in this case, version 1.1.4. So if we, yeah, I'll just leave that as it is at the moment. CockroachDB, because we haven't specified where to download the file from, by default it will download it from docker.io, which is the public representation of Docker images that have been published and vetted. We could download it ourselves and put it into our own repository, which we manage for other Kubernetes clusters, and we will do that when we go to Wars Live as to how we actually get it installed. When it starts up, the Cockroach pod, this is information about how it tells it to start. So it tells us to launch. It'll be installed in the Cockroach directory, to run the Cockroach commands with these parameters in terms of how to actually start it. So it's telling it to join back onto the same clusters. There's more information there, but that's just a quick overview. By this stage, hopefully, Minikube should have started, which is good. So if I go back to my install, so we've started it up. Now, in the instructions, what should have been done is there are two files to download. These are the two YAML files. You'll need to download them and put them in a directory and open your command prompt to that same directory. It doesn't matter where it is. That can be into the C:/Minikube. While you are doing that, I'll run the same things that would have done. So Minikube should now be running, and kubectl should be configured to point to that location. So if I run kubectl-exe create -f, so I'm basically saying I want to create a new Kubernetes cluster, and I want to use the file, and in my case it's the Minikube stateful set.yaml, which is the same one. If you're not in the right directory where that file is located, you'll just get an error, as it won't be able to know where the file is. If I run that, it'll go off and basically say, I've created a service for the CockroachDB public. I've created the service CockroachDB. I've given it a pod disruption budget, which is how many nodes can it live with being down, and it's created the stateful set CockroachDB. By default, in the YAML file, it specifies that we're going to have 3 CockroachDB pods. They're the Kubernetes pods, and those pods are going to host the CockroachDB nodes. There's a bit of mixed terminology there. That should be run fairly quickly in terms of what it's doing. So if we turn around to get services, we should get back CockroachDB and CockroachDB-public. To pods. Yep, it's now finished building for me. I've got back the 3 different pods. If I'm going to click on any of this and you're not yet seeing these responses, please tell me. So those, in my case, those pods are now up and running. Now, to make sure that they've created the persistent storage, you can talk to kubectl, and again, it's a get pvc, which is persistent folder control, I think it is. And we can see here that we now have bound data directories for each of the nodes, for all 3 of the nodes that I've got created. Now, I'm going to copy this command. What this has done is it's actually started up, it's created 3 pods, it's started them up, however, but it hasn't yet joined them all together as a cockroach cluster. So if I run this command, which spins up a temporary new pod connecting to the SQL, so 26257 of the cluster, it will actually error and say, hang on, I can't actually yet connect to it. It's responding with an error, which is correct. So there's one more thing that we need to create. And this time it's a job. So I'll quickly go into the job, what it's doing. All that one is doing is telling it to start up, initialize the cluster. In our case, we're using insecure because we don't really care about the security side of things. We will be using certificates and setting up it as a secure, which includes encrypted communication between nodes, Cockroach nodes, and requiring certificates for clients to connect to the cluster when we go live. But for our testing purposes, it's fine just to leave it as -insecure. So going back. So now, if I run the kubectl create -f cluster init, it creates the job. So it spits back and saying, yep, I've created the job, and we can now just check on the state of the jobs by either going and get jobs and the name of the specific job. It should be fairly quick. You might need to wait a minute or 2 for it to finish running. So wait until the successful equals is 1. Otherwise it'll be 0. While I'm thinking of it, one thing to note, kubectl and Minikube, if you want to check any of the commands that I'm running or what else you can run, you do --help, it'll spit out a nice set of commands that you can actually run at any point in time for how to actually work with it. Now, if I rerun the command 4, it'll turn around and say, no error, which is good. I've now got a connection into the actual cluster. So the cluster, this is just a command line SQL, so I can run actual commands. I've got commands there, so I could create a database, foo, show the databases again, you can now see foo. Some of these commands are Cockroach specific, so I can have a look at the internal structure of the CockroachDB. All of these have the semicolon at the end, so we can see the actual internal structure of the tables. So I could, let's see, DB gives me output. It's not that nice to read, particularly with the formatting of it, but it's okay. To quit this connection and exit out of the actual command line is /q. So it'll get me back to my prompt window. Now that's proof that the Minikube cluster is running, and it's running a CockroachDB cluster. So hopefully you're seeing that locally if you're running along. Now we can get into how to monitor it.